So thank you for everyone who's watching and tuning in with us again. I have Jocelyne Leham with us. She's a psychotherapist. And we wanted to do another segment which I think is so important in regards to relationships. Relationships with our partner when we're healing through trauma, relationships with our kids and the people that are closest to us in our life, because there's a lot of stuff going on inside when we begin to take the lid off of what's been held in our central nervous system for so long, and when we begin to heal. And one thing, just in the awareness and understanding that I have in my own journey is really how our central nervous systems, between Brent and I, were holding space for the trauma each of us had gone through, and how energetically that changed in me when I began to heal, and how it also affected him. And it really struck some things relationally for us. Fears, patterns, ways we were functioning as a husband and a wife. And it can be really scary to the other partner, because most people don't have awareness or understanding of what's going on inside of them or their partner, and they're used to them operating like this. Well, mom usually functions like this when this happens, or dad functions like this, or my wife does this usually. And all of a sudden, when we're not in that space of just automatically being taken over with a trigger, and we began to work with our central nervous system and understand what's going on, and we begin to respond differently, we can often catch the people closest to us off guard, and they don't understand what's going on with mom or with your partner or whoever it may be. So I just wanted to tap into your wisdom again. Really, the importance of attachment, and what happens even from an early stage in life. The whole concept of what happened in the past doesn't really matter, you only care about the future, really isn't true. To heal, we do have to look at the blueprint. We do have to understand why we're wired like we're wired. And then from there, just make practical ways to change that blueprint and start living your life by design versus by an automatic default. So your wisdom around, I guess, how to navigate, the healing process with a partner, or even dynamically within the family.
Because sometimes, often, if we have traumatized nervous system, a lot of it has been suppressed in order just to kind of survive those early years, and then it becomes rigidified and internalized into our nervous system. And we realize that what we do in order to protect often disconnects us from others, right? So it's about being able to kind of reconnect mind, body, spirit, and emotions in ourselves. And once we do that through the healing process, through the re-regulating of the nervous system, widening that window of tolerance, getting more somatic resourcing, and reconnecting to our own selves, then we're going to be much better able to reconnect to those loved ones in our lives, whether they're spouses or children, or even our family of origin. Because often there's still a lot of dynamics that occur in the family of origin that still interrupts our adult lives.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's about, first, often it's when people start remembering their trauma, or they come to the point where they feel that they're stuck in their lives or in their relationships, not knowing why, maybe not knowing who they are, is a really good indication that they've been disconnected, right? And so it starts with basically a desire for change and for healing. So often what happens then is when one person in the couple starts changing, well, it often starts with, maybe remembering things that had been suppressed, having flashbacks, and then just all of the stress of the remembering often will throw things out of whack. But then through that healing process, as we start healing, oftentimes our partners will feel threatened because it's scary, because there's change.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that triggers old worries and anxieties like abandonment, or the fear of disconnection, the fear of losing that person. So it often sometimes will create some discord in that relationship as one person tries to heal.
Mm-hmm. Is there like real practical advice you can give couples where this kind of dynamic push and pull, or polarization really, that's happening between each other? Because I think from a natural perspective you could think, I feel like I don't love him anymore, or I feel like I can't connect with him anymore, and so maybe we aren't meant to be together anymore. However, I don't always agree that that's the real solution, really.
No, I actually think it's because the nervous system is shut down, and when that's shut down, you can't feel connected, and you can't feel loved, or you can't feel that passion, because the nervous system is in that either hypo-aroused state or the hypo-aroused state.
Right.
So it's to find, how do we live in that sweet spot and expand that window of tolerance? Because if we can do that for ourselves, it's going to be better for us in relationship. Mm-hmm. Because we're constantly triggering each other, right? And what happens is when nervous systems triggered nervous systems, then we're all reactive. Then we're usually reacting rather than responding. And we're usually doing it in our most heightened activated state, because that's when we actually want to defend our good, or defend our position, or we want to settle this now.
Yeah.
And what I usually tell couples that come to me, it's about not just, we look at the relationship, but it's really important for each person in that couple to look at what's going on inside of them that's happening, that's coming into the relationship and causing whatever that is. Because it's old stuff, it's old trauma, it's old issues, and we're not really aware that it is. It just gets triggered, and we think it's about now, and we think it's about our partners, when it's really about maybe old core beliefs, old wounds, old traumas that just haven't been healed or have been repressed. So it starts first with, we can only change things in our awareness. So a lot of the psychotherapy is about bringing a lot of things from our subconscious into our level of awareness, so that we are doing things mindfully, intentionally, rather than just running our life reactively.
Right.
So often what happens is we are kind of, in order to kind of cope with what's happening in our childhood, we develop certain character styles that kind of help us cope with whatever's happening. And they are not always healthy, and they may not always be effective, but they work when we're kids. And what happens is we use them so often that when we become adults, it's just the way we've always worked. So those are the things we always do, and then it's like, it's not happening. Did you want to?
He's okay. What was I gonna say? That totally distracted me. When you talked about like a pattern, or a story or a behavior that is deep in there and that comes up. So on a practical level, say we hit that abandonment, or say we hit, I'm not good enough. How do you dismantle that?
Well, the first thing is to recognize when we're triggered. Often we don't realize that we're heightened, and we've already been, our tones are increased, and we've lost our focus and our positive intention and goodwill.
Right.
So it's first about recognizing
I'm triggered.
we're both activated here, right?
Yeah.
So it's about recognizing that, and both agreeing that, this isn't fruitful. We just need to take a little bit of time and space to kind of regulate our nervous systems, to take some breaths, take a few minutes, and it might be more than just a few minutes. And then when the nervous system kind of settles down, and that prefrontal cortex comes back online, and we feel more empathy, that's when we come back and we discuss. what was that all about, right?
Right.
So
I can
that
talk about
so
it with
that
logic and reason.
Logic, reason, empathy, and our ears are turned on, and we're not defending the stance, right? Which is all reactive, and that's all kind of agitated nervous system. So I'm just going to show you what happens, that we are kind of on a continuum. So if we look on one side, we have those people that have a high abandonment anxiety. And then we have, on this side, we have people that have a high, what we call inundation anxiety. So that means that these people need a lot of connection. And when they don't get connection, they feel totally abandoned. And over on this side, these are the people that too much connection is overwhelming. They have a higher need for independence. So in order to be healthy human beings and have healthy relationships, we kind of need a balance of that. But often what happens is you never have two A's getting married or getting together, or two I's. Usually one's a little higher than the other, right? But as we heal and we become more self-aware and we do our work, we hopefully will become less extreme and kind of meet in the middle. So usually what happens, a good example is often when we get triggered and we're reacting and we're discussing and arguing, there's often one that will want to pursue the argument, right?
That would be me.
That would be you. Come here, I want to deal with right now. So you would be kind of wanting to continue.
Right.
The person who has a high inundation would be, whoa, give me some space, like just give me time to breathe and collect my thoughts. And that would feel like they would be the distancer.
Yeah.
So then you would feel you're leaving in the middle of our argument. It feels like, oh my God, you're abandoning me.
Yes.
So that would be something old that would get triggered. That would just make that situation even worse if you weren't aware. Oh, that's my abandonment anxiety. But it feels like, oh my God, you mean you're leaving and we're not finished this discussion? Exactly. And the distancer is just like, give me a second. I just need time to either process or think, or just give me. And that person who needs that distance, right? Yeah. Often it feels that other person, it feels like they're disconnecting and it's rude, but they're just doing it so that they can re-regulate their nervous system.
I had to learn that.
Right? So it's about how do I identify when we're at the peak of our emotions and it's not our prefrontal cortex and our empathy that is responding. It's our fight, flight, or freeze, or our traumatized nervous system, and it's just going to make matters worse. Right? So once we understand this, if couples can if the first step is, okay, we're disagreeing right now at the moment, and I feel like I'm on a 10 on 10 triggered and activated, let's just agree to take a few moments, go do something else, or whatever that is, or use your strategies to help you calm yourselves, and then come back when everything is kind of settled down, so we can actually talk with open hearts and what just happened, right? Right? So we can learn from that, because couples usually tend to battle over the same things over and over and over again, and we never really learn how to do it better or resolve it and move on.
So, like I said, on a practical level, when maybe one is dealing with abandonment, or one is dealing with, I don't feel I'm enough or I'm good enough, how do you begin to give your central nervous system new evidence, and how do you begin to retrain it, really? Because this is it, isn't it? This is what it's all about. It is
what it's all about. I think the first mistake people do is they expect their partner to do that work for them.
Exactly.
And it's not the other person's work. It's an inside job. The only person that can do it is me, because it's an internalized experience. If it's your trigger, it's your trigger. If it's your negative core belief that I'm not good enough, right, or I don't matter, you're leaving, I don't matter, and that's something that's very, very old and has the roots in childhood. So then we would like to peel back those layers and have a look at that, because maybe there's early childhood healing that needs to happen, because it's interfering in current day. And we always say that the past is present. There are some modalities that used to think, no, just forget about the past, just focus. But if we're traumatized and we haven't healed from the past, and it's constantly triggering and impacting our current functioning in our relationships, we need to look at the old stuff. And it's not about shaming or blaming or guilting our families or what happened to us. It's about having some self-awareness and self-understanding to understand, why do I work this way and why do I feel this way or have these beliefs? Then once I can understand that, I can move forward and heal from that.
And it comes through mostly like your own self-awareness, right?
It starts with self-awareness. If we're not self-aware, we're not being a good person in the couplehood.
Yeah.
Right? We're just kind of just willy-nilly.
Yeah, someone's flying the plane.
Somebody else is flying the plane. It's your nervous system.
Yeah. So once we get to original incidents, understand our behaviors, the stories we tell ourselves.
Our negative core beliefs that keep bumping in there. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're telling ourselves something over and over and over again.
Do you find when you're working with people, like, saying a mantra, or how do you begin to retrain the brain that way and realize that I am good enough?
Well, there's different ways. There's working with the actual neural pathways, and there's new research on EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Right.
There's also bilateral stimulation or tapping. There's also doing breath work, body work. There's lots of different tools and strategies that can help that healing along the way. I think it depends on the therapist that you're working with. Some have, quite a breadth and depth of experience and approaches that can kind of facilitate that. So you want to find somebody that's a good fit for you if you're looking for help. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think it did, because even for myself, I think even in my meditation, if I'm struggling with safety, I might sit there and say, I feel safe, or I feel safe.
Yes.
Breathe, Mel.
Yeah.
I feel safe.
And
or
even
I feel safe in my body.
And it is.
Or
it's
the
about
butterfly.
the butterfly hug. This is bilateral stimulation. I feel safe. Or sometimes it's about take a breath, do a reality check. Okay, what's going on? I don't feel safe. Okay. Do I have any reason not to feel like I'm safe? Well, not really. I'm sitting in this room talking to you, but my body is telling me it's not safe. So I can learn to soothe and calm myself, right? So the butterfly hug, taking some breaths. There's different types of breath for different types of reasons, so it's always good to kind of learn some of that. Being able to learn how to ground yourself, doing things that are very like having grounding practices in your day-to-day.
You had to teach me a lot of those to get me
just
back in my
into
body.
your body, right? Because what we do is, because trauma is in the body, we tend to want to live in our heads and we disconnect from this. So the process is reconnecting. So at first it's like, ooh, I can feel things I have never felt before, which is kind of scary and might feel worse before it starts feeling better. But it is about learning how to feel all of our feelings, because we're emotional beings. That's a life fully lived is an emotional one. So if we're trying to suppress all our emotions, we're not really living our lives.
That being said, you just brought up kind of a wealth of information, and in your practice you're trained in so many ways that I really haven't really talked about. I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit more about that, but you do have a whole wealth of information behind you. It's not about, someone sitting on a couch and how are you feeling today, Mel? It's so much more than that. When I work with you, it's about me having a feeling and you addressing it and saying, where do you feel that in your body? And working with that emotion. It's so much more somatic than it is how are you feeling today? And through our work together, it brought so much more awareness towards my triggers for migraines.
And where you store your tension.
Where I store the tension, and then just the different things that you gave me to help because it all came a lot from overwhelm and everything that I was processing and going through. So just to end the segment, I guess, with relationships, just if there's any piece of advice that you have for couples that are, you know, maybe experiencing that polarization, maybe one's healing, maybe there's a lot of triggering going on, maybe they feel like their world is coming unraveled with, you know, their marriage or their family. What piece of advice, you know, that do you feel that would be helpful?
I always want people to be hopeful. So I always kind of do the education about what's happening in their nervous system and what's happening when they get into those states of conflict or of discord, right? And I think it is normal in relationships that we have periods of time where we kind of turns towards each other, and sometimes we feel like we're drifting apart, and it's about catching those and being able to turn towards each other again. I think it's really, if couples, I know it takes a lot of strength and courage to come to counseling, but often just having that facilitator to kind of help that process along. But you know, if couples can come in together, it's not just when they come in together for couples counseling, we're working on the relationship. But the biggest part too is having each one in that couple to be doing their own inside job, their own internal work, and realizing what old stuff of theirs is interfering with the harmony in the relationship.
And what you just said there, I think, is so powerful. Like, so often it's about he's not feeling this need for me, or she's not doing this for me. And I think what you just said is worth, you know, so much, because it really is about ownership. It's about you doing your work, and hopefully in that dynamic, whoever you're with, your partner, your husband, spouse, decides that, hey, I want to go on that journey too, because it's kind of a journey you have to heal together, or energetically it can pull you apart. And what greater opportunity is to heal together.
And yes, and have that emotional support, because often when one is going through something, that other one can be that support, and vice versa. But it has to be kind of shared, right, as well. It can't be just one person.
Right. Reciprocity.
Doing all the work, or a give and take and receive. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. If anyone wants to connect with you, either one-on-one or through couple counseling or sessions working together, what would be the best way for them to contact you?
They could just email me at jocelyne.leham@usask.ca. I believe you'll probably put it up somewhere.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for watching us, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can feel free to drop us a comment underneath the video, and we'd be happy to get back to you. Have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.